All right, hello everybody. This is weird seeing everybody on the big screen. What do I look like?
There's only been two of us looking at the screen for all these years.
All right, well, let's get started. So this is the Board of Finance meeting, October 28th, 7:06 p.m. We will do, the recording has started. We will open the meeting, take a roll call. Greg Benno, sorry.
Here.
Dane Shefsky, staying up there.
Here.
Here. John Oshevsky.
Here.
Steve Kirsch.
Here.
Rebecca O'Donnell.
Here.
All right. Please note this meeting is being conducted utilizing electronic equipment in compliance with State Law Public Act 21.1. As such, the meeting is being recorded and will be available to the public in compliance with state law. If you are attending remotely, please remember to mute your microphone unless you are speaking. Anyone participating remotely shall state their name and title, if applicable, at the outset of each occasion that the person is speaking. All votes taken during which any member of this body are participating remotely shall be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. Chat feature will not be utilized or considered during this meeting. All right. First order, approval of minutes and voting record for September 23rd.
Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance. I move that we approve the meeting minutes and voting record for September 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, discussions, comments? All right, hearing none. Greg?
Actually, do you want to do it the way you did for pension?
Can we do it that way for pension, or we just say?
If there's no objection.
Any objections? That's easy. I like this.
I can't.
All right, hearing none, passes unanimously. I like that trick. Thank you. First selectman, you were up.
Thank you. Really, the only update I wanted to mention is we had as you know, we're in the process of finalizing our bond issuance. That's going to close fairly soon, and had our ratings call with S&P. I think it went really well, and we're looking forward to get that final report, which we expect very soon. I want to just thank, for the record, Mike and Ron, who were on that call and did a phenomenal job as always, and Heidi for all her help behind the scenes putting documents and stuff together for us, because as you can imagine, they request a wealth of documents. So thanks for that. The only other updates they have are, I can speak to them when they're on your later on in your agenda.
Very good.
Mike, can I ask?
Please.
Ken, a couple of questions, if I might.
Sure.
Is it possible to get the package for the Board of Finance 48 hours in advance instead of 24? Especially when we've got something as large as this one, to get it just the night before. Can we get it a little bit earlier?
Well, it's really not my.
I was going to say, it's not Ken, it's
responsibility
finance
to
and-
pack it together, and it's really up to the.
Well,
This
I'm
one
not
probably
sure
lays
whose
on me,
responsibility.
honestly.
If it's on you, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's my responsibility.
I mean, I'm sure.
We'll do our best. We used to get it out. We've been a little jammed in with the bond.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize, but, I'm just wondering,
Absolutely.
the other major bodies get it on.
Point taken, we will do our best to get it out a little earlier.
The second thing, and I think this is a question for you, Mr. Chairman, as much as it might end up being a to-do for the first selectman. Given that we made a number of reductions in capital spending and kept line items in the budget the same, I've had a recent experience with the town, a good one to say, with the tree warden and an issue with a couple of trees on town property bordering mine, and the issue of tree trimming and the issue of the bucket truck that's been on the capital list came up again in my conversation with the tree warden, and I was wondering if there was a way, number one, for us to revisit that, given we had a good financial year last year, we put more money back in.
We can revisit anything we want.
Can we revisit it, and would you be willing to, and if so?
I mean, we're getting
asked to have
close enough to getting into budget season, so I mean, we can certainly review. I don't know what was I don't know where it laid out in what year. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
It was not identified as a priority for this current budget.
That's what I thought. So I mean, I think, we can certainly look at capital in the next month to look at going forward.
Could we ask?
Yeah, I wouldn't take one out of, you know what I mean?
No, but I was wondering if we could maybe ask the tree warden and the director of public works to come address us on that.
I would like to do it more globally and just say, like, let's look at the capital budget. Let's look at what we approved for last year. Make sure we've taken care of all that, but I'm certainly willing to open it up to anything else.
Okay, then can we put that on the agenda for
We can.
next month? Thank you.
Make sure we have someone certified to operate.
Cool. All right. Anything else?
Not for me.
Public participation? See anyone here? Anyone on the screen? All right, last call for public participation. Okay, very good. Unfinished business is our placeholder, so we're going to jump right into proposed new business. So, Ron, you want to walk us through the budget transfer?
Actually, I think the first selectman was going to.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So there's two in the packet. One is a resolution to authorize transfer from HR wage adjustments for the fiscal year. So this is a amount that was in the current budget for HR wage adjustments for various reasons, be it collective bargaining agreements and other non-union employees. So just to ensure that we can then move those dollars out to the departments as those are authorized, we're asked that this be adopted.
All right, someone want to make a motion?
Chairman, Steve Kirsch, I'll read the resolution and ask that it be adopted. Be it resolved that the first selectman is authorized to transfer available funds from the HR wage adjustments account for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, pursuant to Chapter 8, Section 7G of the Charter for the Town of Monroe, and that these transfers are necessary to effectuate retroactive and prospective salary payments, A, pursuant to certain collective bargaining agreements as authorized and approved by the town council, and B, as determined by the first selectman for certain non-union employees in an amount not to exceed $104,452 in the aggregate.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Questions? All right, hearing none. Any objections? Like this. Yeah. All right, hearing none, passes unanimously.
The second item in the packet is a little bit more specific. This is, we have been advised of an upcoming leave that will be requested from an employee, and based upon the budget in that department, we anticipate that to be a little bit short. There is, however, ample funds available in another department, the planning and zoning administrator position having been open for some time. So we're looking to transfer funds from P&Z admin salaries to building salaries other and HR FICA to cover that leave period. Both departments obviously under the direction of the town planner, and he's brought this to my attention and worked with finance to address it.
You want to make a motion, Steve?
Steve Kirsch, Board of Finance, read the following resolution and ask for its approval. Be it resolved that the following budget transfer be approved pursuant to Chapter 8, Section 7F of the Charter. $6,879 from the P&Z Administrative Salaries account, with $6,400 going to building salaries other, and $479 going to the HR FICA Medicare ER taxes account.
We have a second?
Second.
Any questions, discussions? Objections? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now we had requested last month for the Board of Ed to give us a little bit of a little more detailed information on staffing the Esser grants. So I know they've worked very hard over the last month. I really appreciate them taking the time to do this for us so we can get an idea of exactly what they're looking at and facing. So Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks again for joining us. It's getting to be a habit, which we like.
Always a pleasure to join you guys. I apologize. I'm not there. I didn't realize there were going to be so many people in person. This week.
Neither did we.
threw you off.
I don't know who the organizer is, but can the organizer make me the presenter so I can just share some slides that Darlene and I have put together with the help of Sheila and Jack?
Well, okay.
Might cost you.
Joe, I'm giving it to you, right? Yep. Okay, there you go.
All right. How do I share that screen? You know what?
Yeah.
I'll just do that. I'll just move it on to that screen. All right.
We don't have this, do we?
The things we do.
So can you see that okay now?
That drops.
Yep.
Looks fine.
I thought we did.
All right. So once again, thank you all. Like I said, and I appreciate it, Mike, you kind of set the table for us to be able to put a little context into some of the conversations that were had at the last Board of Finance meeting. And, a lot of it really revolves around enrollment and staffing challenges that we've been facing this year. And, kind of what we've done so far and where we've earmarked the money. At the last meeting, I talked about how we have kind of earmarked Esser money to cover some staffing issues that we have this year in the event that it's not covered any other way. And I'll kind of walk everybody through how we got there. So this slide here is actually a copy of my slide, my budget assumption slide from last year's budget presentation. And these were the 7 assumptions that we had going into last year. Most of them were assumptions that came true. We talked about stability and special ed costs. That's from the good work done by this board here in setting up that special education reserve fund, increases in healthcare, funding of repair and maintenance accounts, and so on. But the 2 that I highlighted here is stability and student enrollment after the current year increase. So last year we experienced a pretty significant uptick during the course of the year, and as we planned our budget for this year, we said, all right, well, we're going to kind of even out, after this year. There's an uptick. People were moving in from all over the place. That has actually increased further than we had originally anticipated. And the other one was that we'd be living in a post-COVID world, and while we're almost there, we're not there all the way just yet. I'm going to go over who we've hired so far this year, and then I'm going to explain how we got there in a few minutes. But so far, and again, this is through earmarking money through either the Esser 2 grant, the ARP Esser grant, or a special education, I believe it's special education Esser grant as well. So post-budget coming into this year due to enrollment, and I'm going to get into the enrollment in a second, we had to hire a 0.25 English language learners teacher. We had one already, 0.75, servicing 5 buildings. So we had basically a 3/4 timer trying to get to 5 different buildings, and we have a huge influx of students with English language learning needs. One of the big areas that took a hit from COVID, we saw slips. Obviously, the whole state, the whole country saw, learning loss last year. The biggest area of learning loss was in the area of mathematics. So we took some of the, we were kind of earmarking semester 2 money for our K-5 math coordinator. Our students have a number of behaviors, and I'll talk about those a little bit. Darlene will probably touch on those, that have really required us to increase some student support staff in terms of making our social worker full-time, our school psychologist, one of our school psychologists full-time. Then we had some really significant enrollment gains at the elementary levels, particularly at Fawn Hollow and Stepney Elementary, which required us to add 2 teachers at two kindergarten teachers at Fawn Hollow, 3rd grade teacher at Fawn Hollow, and a 4th grade teacher at Stepney. And now we have, because of the enrollment, and you'll see when Darlene shows in a few minutes, in special ed, we've had to hire we're in the process actually, and that's why it's kind of italicized right now. We're in the process of hiring an additional special education teacher to cover, to be split between STEM and MASIC, and also increase services in speech and language. We also hired some non-certified staff as well to help. As I discussed on the previous page, math has been a big area of focus for us. It saw the most significant learning loss last year. So we hired math tutors, what we're calling high impact math tutors, folks that are hired specifically to work with our math coordinator and the classroom teachers to work on kids with their math skills. And then the other big hire here was behavior techs, which were hired at Monroe, Fawn Hollow, Jockey Hollow, and STEM. And those are people to go in and deal with a lot of the behavioral issues that we're seeing this year post-COVID. And again, Darlene and I will probably touch on those in a few minutes. So how did we get there? Why did we have to do this stuff? I think this is let me just minimize this a little bit so you can see the whole screen. This enrollment trend shows the story here. So what I have here is I have enrollment at 3 different points. There's 2 official times that the enrollment is reported to the state of Connecticut. On October 1st, and that's this enrollment right here. The last day of school, that's this enrollment here. And then I also included last year at the budget presentation time, I included an enrollment slide, and this is the enrollment when we were presenting the budget last year. And I want you to see where our stressors are. As you already saw, they're in the elementary schools. We hired 2 kindergarten teachers, a 3rd grade teacher, and a 4th grade teacher, but we have more stressors coming our way. So, if you look at the bottom line, Monroe Elementary, for example, we have 376 students this year. That's 22 more than we had on the last day of school, 32 more than we had at budget time last year. The big story at Monroe Elementary, however, is the number of pre-K students we have. Those are students who are primarily special education, who are identified in the birth to 3 program, who come in, they're 3 years old, 4 years old, and 5 years old before kindergarten. This year, as of October 1st, we have 58 students in that pre-K program. Last year, last year at the budget presentation time, we had 39 students. We finished the year last year with 50 students. This number will increase. Some of the other numbers, may tick up 1 or 2, but as kids turn 3 years old this year, they will enter this program. So the kids in the program will be in this program for the year. The kids who turn 3 this year will start to age into that program. And I think, we know of right now, Darlene probably has the official number. We know of another 11 to 13 kids. So that's a big pressure at Monroe Elementary right now. And again, up 32 kids from when we presented the budget last year. The big pressure at Fawn Hollow is in kindergarten right now. If you look at our kindergarten enrollment right now, we have 125 students. We have 6 sections. Last year, we had 4 sections of kindergarten at Fawn Hollow with 84 students. We had 86 by the end of the year. So our kindergarten numbers went up 41 students. We had to add 2 sections. If you look at Fawn Hollow overall, we're up 70 students at Fawn Hollow, from 583 to 653 from budget time last year to October 1 this year. And again, the big push there, if you notice, most of the other sections in the school are sections of 5. This is a section of 6 this year in kindergarten. We have a pretty large group of large section sizes in 5th grade right now, but we're holding tight with 3 sections of 26, and I think it's 1 section of 27. The issue is going to be coming into next year, what are we going to get into kindergarten? Because this 4 is going to roll out. Are we going to replace it with 6 again? Are we going to continue to, is this a trend we're seeing? Or is this a 1-year blip because kids kept their kids out? because of all the uncertainty of last year. So this is going to be a big area of focus for us this year to keep an eye on. Stepney section sizes, we had to add a section in, I think it was third grade from last year to this year. We went from 68. We had three classrooms of 23. That became 75 this year. It was just gonna be too big for third grade, especially coming out of the pandemic. An increase here as well from budget time to October 1 of 29 students. So that's a big part of the story. The middle school and high school, relatively flat. If you look at the middle school from last year at budget time, 775. Right now we're at 781. We're actually 2 students less than where we finished the year. So very flat at the middle school. The high school has 13 students more from budget time, 19 students more from the last day of school. Much easier to filter in the high school students into different classes. There's hundreds of sections run at the high school, so it's easy to sprinkle in 13 to 19 students. A little bit more difficult at the elementary schools. I think this was another slide that I had included. This was another slide that I had included last year in the budget presentation, and it's even a little bit more pronounced this year. So this shows from 11-12 to 21-22 our enrollment, and it also shows our certified staff. And if you see what happened, and I credit my predecessors, Jim Augustine, John Batista, when they were here and they were experiencing this decreased enrollment, we went down 100 kids from this year to this year, 100, another 100, another 80 or so, another close to 100. As that enrollment was going down, we were reducing staff as well, and we reduced staff. Last year, this trend, actually it's been the last 2 years, but last year particularly, this trend we started to buck the trend and we increased students. But the difference from last year to this year is even more pronounced. I didn't say in the previous slide, but we're up over as a district over 150 kids. So we're at 3,345 in our whole district right now. And when you compare that, and this kind of exacerbates the stress we're seeing with our certified staff, 3,345 students, 267 and change staff right now. The last time we were around this number of 3,345 was between 13-14 and 14-15. And if you look in those 2 years, 13-14 and 14-15, we had between 277 and 280 for teachers. So we had between 10 and 13 more teachers around that same enrollment trend as we currently have now. So I'm gonna sorry, Dar. I'm gonna flip it over to Darlene right now, who's gonna kind of talk a little bit more about what she's seeing in special ed. She's gonna go through. She's seeing a lot of the same stuff that we're seeing in the general education area with all of our students. But I'm gonna have her walk you through and give a quick little understanding too of the special education process a little bit, just for everybody's awareness. And Dar, just let me know when you want me to flip the screen, and don't forget to undo stuff.
I just did. Okay, so as Joe said, I want to give you a brief overview of the special education law. So under IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Act, districts are bound by law to provide a free appropriate education to all students ages 3 to 22. Districts must also find and evaluate students thought to have disabilities at no cost to families. This is called child fund. A planning and placement team will then evaluate these to determine eligibility. If a student is found eligible, the PBT team must develop an individualized education plan, or IEP, that includes goals and objectives or specialized instruction in the least restrictive environments. So when we talk about, placing students, our goal is always to try to keep them in district with their typical peers. So by law, the IEP must be fully implemented, even if someone moves into the district with an IEP. So, for instance, if a student moves in who has already been placed in a private school setting and they move into our district from another district, we have to honor that IEP. So that always is a cost to the district. That's an unexpected cost. Next slide. The law also requires teams to meet annually to update goals and objectives and monitor progress on the IEPs. These meetings take place throughout the school year and a few even over the summer. Student program changes can be made in each meeting, which makes it very difficult to propose a budget for special education. As you know, we begin that budget in October, and the budget is adopted in January by the Board of Education for the following school year. In the 7 months that follow, so many things can happen in special education. A number of services may be increased or decreased and may include, as you see here, speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy, behavioral therapy, counseling, and even at times we have to put in paraeducator support for students. In 2020, next slide, sorry, Joe. So this chart it compares the 2021 school year to what we started with in this school year. In 2020, we began the school year with 436 students and ended the year with 507 students. In comparison to this school year, we started with 496 students, a difference of 60 students between the 2 years. Also notice that we graduated 30 students in June of 2021, but we had 31 students register with IEPs before the school year began. To date, we have 508 students, so we are essentially beginning the school year with the same number of students that we ended with last year. Next slide. This line graph shows the October 1st state reported numbers on the bottom, and are the end of the year numbers. So as you can see, this is just a pictorial representation. As you can see, we have had a steady increase in the number of special education students enrolled in Monroe, with this summer being a significant increase of students moving into the district. Next slide. This is essentially the same slide that Joe had, but for special education staff. So as Joe stated earlier, our enrollment continues to increase, but we have not increased the number of staff that we have servicing our students. This table highlights the October 1st numbers and the number of staff in district employed in special education from 2014 to present date. Although the number of staff fluctuates, if you look at the 2014 with 35.2 special education teachers and 307 students, and we compare it to today, the 21-22, where we just began the school year, and we have 34.7. This includes the 34.7 includes the teacher that we are in the process of hiring. So if we were not hiring that teacher, it would be 33.7. But we have 504 students. We have a significant amount of students that came in over the summer. Another factor here is since 2019 school year, we have brought 6 students back to the district, which requires more staff, but saves us on outside tuition, public or private tuition. Bringing services into the district is more efficient. For example, we implemented a program today, this year, our new community-based program, and we saved about over $50,000 in just this first year. And as students continue to utilize this program, the savings will increase. Because remember, by law, we now have to keep students. It used to be 21, now it's 22. So this program is for 18 to 22-year-olds. Many times they would get placed into other programs, other transition programs, but we're trying to, develop this community program for us so that we don't have place them out of district. So, needless to say, we are in the process of increasing special education staff. Joe already talked about this. We have one full-time special education teacher in the works. We are increasing .4 speech and language pathologists. These are people who already work for us but don't work for us full-time. But on the IEP, all service hours that are on the IEP have to be met. It's a legally binding document. So without increasing the number, some staff that we have, we could essentially be out of compliance if we don't have the right number of staff, because we won't be able to meet those hours on the IEP. So speech and language is an area where we are going to increase. Joe talked about that there is another grant coming out, another Esser grant. It's called Esser IDEA, and it's very small, but it, you know, that's where right now I'm planning on using that money to increase our speech and language staff. And we haven't gotten all the details. I go to a meeting on November 3rd, and the state is going to explain to us how they really, you know, what they really think we should be spending this money on. So we got the full-time special education teacher, the .4 in speech and language, and a paraeducator that we had to add on, because again, if a student comes into district with adult support, one-to-one adult support on their IEP, we have to honor it. So in addition, Joe also talked about the Birth to Free program. We usually go into the state website after the October 1st numbers to get a look at what's coming down the road. And Joe was right, we have the potential of a lot more students that will reach the age of 3 before the end of this school year. And what we have to do is we have to, we have to screen them and provide a program for them if they remain eligible. Usually they do, because they've already had the Birth to Free services. And also in that 11 is not included the referrals that we get from our area preschool. So when I talked about child find, it's our responsibility to find students who may be having difficulties and screen them or evaluate them. We work with the preschools in town and the area preschools, and they notify us if they see that there are students having difficulties, and then we send out our preschool team, to observe those students, and we decide whether we're going to evaluate or not. So that could potentially increase it another 6 to 8 students that will be coming into preschool. So our preschool numbers are already high, with each teacher having 18 students. So it looks to me like we have to consider hiring another preschool teacher around January.
Thanks, Star.
Yep.
Good. I just want to walk folks through. Like I said, I was nervous this year. I want to make sure that we have money earmarked for this staff. I know by doing so, we create we run the potential, or we don't run the potential. We create a fiscal cliff. But I wanted to make sure we were going to be able to cover our expenses this year. Although this isn't the way we want to be spending this money, we had to prepare for that, in the worst case scenario. So I think on the next part of the agenda talks about the ARP Esser grants, and we're not going to walk through those. This is kind of a cheat sheet. I think Sheila put this together. Sheila's done a lot of work on the grants, and just so you can kind of get an understanding of what we've received. Well, I shouldn't say we've received. We haven't received all of this yet, but what we're anticipating receiving from the government in terms of ESSER 2 funds and ARP Esser funds, all of which I believe need to be encumbered by September of 23. So what we have done so far is, if you look at a lot of those positions that I mentioned earlier in the ESSER 2 grant. So the ESSER 2 grant, the ESSER 2 grant was was 143,000. The ARP Esser grant was a little over $1.1 million. So what we've done so far is we've kind of earmarked for some of this staff that we've needed to get this year. So here's that ELL teacher I was talking about, the K-5 math coordinator, the social worker, the psychologist, those high impact math supports, those math tutors. So a lot in staff. We were able to run some programming, which is really what we want to do. And I'm going to share what the purpose of the grants was in a minute. We did run a middle school regular ed summer program, kind of an enrichment program. We did some training at the middle school and high school. Our elementary schools gotten some professional development and whatnot. But really the lion's share of the funds have been tied up in staffing if we have to go that route. In fact, I hope we don't have to. But so that was for the Esser 2 grant. The ARP Esser grant, you see again a lot of money tied up in staffing for operating expenditures for this year. Our 2 new kindergarten teachers, our grade 3 teacher, our grade 4 teacher, those behavior techs who are working with students who are dysregulated, all of that has been kind of earmarked there for now. We wanted to have a more robust after school evening tutoring program. We haven't done that yet because we want to see kind of where we were. We had actually earmarked more money for this in the grant, but we took it out because, as Darlene just talked about, we've had to hire a special education teacher, a lunch and recess para over at Jockey Hollow. So that gets you to the $1.1 million. I can come back with that, and I'll have this available for everybody. The big story here is, like I said, a lot of this is being used on staff for this year. Would we like to be able to use this money for other things? Absolutely. The needs of the kids coming out of the pandemic this year is something we've never experienced before, and we shouldn't be surprised when we see this. When we look at our seniors, their last year, and I said this to the Board of Ed the other night, the seniors, their last regular year of school was in 9th grade. Our 9th graders, their last regular year of school was in 6th grade. Our 2nd graders have never had a regular year of school. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that this year is not regular either. So, our 9th graders, maybe in 10th grade, they'll have a regular year of school again. And the last time they would have had a regular year of school was in 6th grade. And when you look at our youngest kids, we're seeing, actually, when you look at all of our kids, but when you look at some of our youngest kids, a lot of them skipped preschools because there was so much uncertainty around what was going on. And there's just, at those young ages, there was a major sense of a loss of socialization that we're seeing, behaviors, anxiety levels are through the roof. A lack of independence, for a year and a half while we were either hybrid or remote or whatnot, kids weren't that independent with their learning as much as they could have been, especially at the younger grades where they had to rely on parents, which I know was incredibly taxing for parents. We're seeing kids at the younger grades come in. We talk about behaviors. We have kids that are more kids than ever that are nonverbal, non-communicative. And then we just have kids that are just dysregulated at all ages. We're seeing behaviors in high school that we would normally see in middle school. And I guess we shouldn't be surprised because that's kind of their last frame of reference was the middle school. So it's been incredibly taxing for the staff. And the purpose of the Esser 2 and the ARP Esser money is in these priority areas. I'm not going to read them to you, but it's in kind of addressing a lot of those things, that academic loss, the unfinished learning, getting families and communities connected again. The big one is, providing for the social and emotional health of the students. Because here's the simple thing: if you don't feel good, if you have too much anxiety, if other things are bringing out, you're not going to learn. You're not going to be available for learning, and that's the biggest thing. Those behaviors are interfering with kids' ability to be even ready to learn. So, we have some ideas. This is not a comprehensive list. This isn't the list. There's actually several items. Starting in the summer, I worked with the administrative team on programming that we would like to be able to offer our kids coming out of the pandemic. This would be what the Esser 2 and the ARP Esser money was used for. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. These are some of the items that have popped up. We have well more than what the grant would propose, and we'd have to really sit down and look at it. But a few things we want to do is, just offer enrichment and support activities during the week at the elementary levels. At the secondary level, Jockey Hollow and Massac, get tutoring programs together and Saturday academies, where kids can come in, do enrichment activities, and get caught up in some of that unfinished learning. The Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence does a training in a program called RULER. RULER stands for Recognizing, Understanding, Labeling, Expressing, and Regulating Emotions. We would love to be able to get that. It's been a very successful program around the state. We'd love to get that into our elementary schools, just to help those kids to be able to deal with some of that anxiety and depression and things that they're facing. I won't go through every single thing here, but just to give you an idea, we do have a list. This isn't the complete list, but this just to give you an idea. I think there's over 1.2 or $1.3 million of programming just here. But that's what we'd like to be able to do with the money. But right now, again, my concern was I wanted to make sure that we were covered for this year. Worst case scenario, we had to use the Esser money or the ARP Esser money to cover staff. We would. Those are operating expenses, operating expenditures. We'd like to be able to try to find something different. But if we couldn't, I wanted to make sure that we had money allocated. I did not want to be in a situation where, we're coming with a significant, deficit. So I'll open it up to you folks if you have any questions. And Ken, if you want, I could turn the.
Joe, I just have one question. Are we seeing, I know we had a lot of outplacements in past, and I know last year we didn't see a lot of outplacements because people weren't attending outside. What are we seeing in that this year?
As I mentioned before, we brought 6 students back to district from outplacements. We are getting a lot of referrals for, evaluations due to mental health. So, and a lot of times those recommendations come back for a therapeutic day program. So if you looked at Joe's list, there is concern for the middle school and the mental health piece. So we were hoping that we could use some of the Esser to begin a new therapeutic day program in our middle school, so that we don't have to send students out of district.
Do we have any idea where we're running against where we budgeted though for the outplacements? I mean, I know we ended up, $1 million surplus last year because we didn't have those. So.
Yeah, we still have some students who are not. It's fewer than last year, Grant. I'll tell you that. But but we still have a few students who are not really taking advantage of the full programs. Now this may change in January when more students begin to get vaccinated, because we do have some parents, because of medical issues, that they're nervous about sending their kids. So
right.
Right now we're showing a surplus in those placements, but come January, like I said, special ed changes on a day-to-day basis, and January is where those families will make decisions on whether they're going to come back or not full time.
So we'll have a better idea where you're at the end of January, is what you're telling me then.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, makes sense.
Couple of questions.
That's why.
Steve Kirsch, a couple of questions. One, Joe, can we get yours and Darlene's presentation?
Absolutely.
And my second question, could you go back to the teacher versus student slide that you had? So if I'm looking at 21-22, you have 267.65 teachers. That's roughly what you had in 16-17. But you have, what, 200, 150 something, whatever it is, more students, I guess is what I was looking at. You pointed out the student enrollment. I was looking at where were we the last time we had the same number of teachers.
That's a good point, Steve. Thank you.
Okay.
And the issue with the students too, and I think I made the point earlier, it's where they're falling. It's flat in the middle school and high school. It'd be much easier to absorb kids at the secondary level. And we did some of that last year. Oddly, we had a lot of kids enter the high school last year, but this year, just to start the year, we're way up at the elementary levels. And there's less flexibility there with the elementary, obviously.
Mhm.
Can I ask one? Joe, question for you. The Esser grants, they fall off into fiscal, what, 23, 24?
Yeah, Sheila, it's September, the money, and this is a question we're still trying to figure out. I believe the money needs to be encumbered by September of 23. So, could we use the money do we have to use the money by September of 23, or can it just be encumbered and can we use it for the 23-24 school year?
And that's a question, Mike. Right now, we've asked the State Department of Ed, and the people who oversee our forms are not 100% sure on it. So they are.
Welcome to the government. We wrote the law, but we didn't really.
Here's a bunch of money, but we're not going to tell you.
We're not really sure what the rules are. Yeah, that's.
Right. And honestly, the rules, I feel bad for them because the rules are changing as this is going along, and they're just trying to do the best they can and help us get the money in our hands.
So the impact point of the disappearance of these federal grants due to COVID is into the 24-25 budget year, which is a December 23 presentation to the Board of Education.
I think 23, 24.
No, you got to back it up on that.
I heard encumbered by September of 23.
Right.
That means they can be expended in the 23-24 fiscal year.
Right.
So in 24, now you're on your own.
Yeah, I see what Pat's saying. Yep.
So what I'm saying, so the concern here is where do you have to either eliminate these things because now we're out of COVID and we don't necessarily need them, or we have decided that they need to be kept because we have increased enrollment due to the house turnover. And so you're a couple of years down the road. That's all.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 years is when it's going to bite you. Mm-hmm. Or not bite you. Right. Okay. Anybody else? Joe, this is great. I appreciate the explanation, and we're probably going to then bug you to come back in January so we have a better idea, where exactly you're at, and we have a much better scope of what's going on.
So let me ask one other, if I may. So Joe, Steve Kirsch, one further question. Given that you've used or budgeted these ESSER funds for the teachers, and therefore you can't do these additional programs that you would otherwise do, if we get further on down the line, at what point can you no longer switch back, if you will? At what point does, we find out you've got a surplus, or we find out maybe we decide we want to take some money from the general fund to help fund the teachers so you can do some of these other programs? Is there like a drop dead point where those become not worth doing during the school year?
Yeah, we are able to amend the grant. Sheila, do you know how long have they indicated like a drop dead date for amendment on the grant?
They have not for the ARP ESSERs because they go out so many years. Other typical grants that we work on, I do have a tight window on, and they usually tell you that, ahead of time. You have less than a year to be able to do that because they're 2-year grants. So before the first year ends, you have to make any changes before the second year would start. This one goes a little bit longer, and they have not given us a due date on when we can no longer make changes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Got it.
All right. Review of 2020 financial reports. Anybody got anything in the general fund report? Call out or talk to us about? The exciting round?
At this point, no, not really.
Probably too early to get, right? Exactly. Good. Tax collector. You have to do something so Deb can speak.
Deb,
She was there.
she was there. I don't see her there.
Where'd you go, Deb?
Yeah, we shouldn't have put the move up. Sure. Something. All right.
I don't see her on here.
We'll come back if she's. How about the treasurer? We got a treasurer here. Hey, we got a treasurer this month. Missed y'all last month, but welcome back.
Welcome words from the University of Alabama and University of Florida, which are two of the finer institutions I've ever stepped foot on for a football game. So you're looking at the new treasurer's report. I am also looking at the new treasurer's report for the first time ever. So I may get together with Ron between now and the next meeting to add a few tweaks because I'm still kind of fighting my way through it. But essentially, it looks like we have $23 million invested in CDs. The stiff rate from the state of Connecticut is 0.09. And for anybody who wasn't here at the earlier meeting, the Fed's not going to do anything for us. I don't know, for the next, 10 years maybe? So,
Never say never.
that's, and it looks like the Janney Montgomery account is still chugging along. Any questions? That's all I got for you.
Schools, I assume we covered everything there?
Yeah, just to add to what Darlene had said earlier, special ed right now is okay.
Right.
The bigger concern is what's going to happen in.
No, and I know the big swings of those outplacements.
Yeah.
Because they can be incredibly expensive on an individual basis. If you get 4 or 5 of them together, they'll swing the whole thing in a minute. So
Yeah, so
if we get the benefit like we did last year, it's a big swing this way. If everybody comes back, we're going to swing the other way.
right. Which again, I don't want to, this hasn't been discussed with the Board of Ed, but it's been discussed internally. If we have brought students back, you can maybe justify through the budget, moving some money to a position, versus, because you're, at the end, you're saving money.
Because you're not outsourcing it. Right.
Yeah, so, that's not a decision you want to take lightly, because when you hire someone, you want it to be more of a
Permanent thing, yes. It's not a good thing to bring them in and bring them out without it.
Those are conversations that are being had right now. So.
Perfect. All right. They got anything else? Hey. Want to make a motion?
Steve Kirsch moved to adjourn.
There you go. Thanks, Steve. You do your job well, Steve.
We never
even wait for a second. Adjourning.
Thank you.